Have you ever noticed how the people who talk about your projects are exactly the ones they do the least? In the meantime, those who really transform the world around them seem to operate in almost mysterious silence. If you are tired of being one more in the crowd that screams to be noted, if you are exhausted to try to prove your value through words and yet feel ignored, then you need to understand what I will share in the next few minutes. Because there is an abyssal difference between those who talk about doing it and who simply does. And this difference is not only in the results these people achieve, but the kind of respect and magnetism they naturally exercise about everyone around them. What you are about to find out goes against everything our society teaches us about selling yourself and doing networking. It will challenge your need for external validation and show you a completely different way to become someone truly impossible to ignore. A path that philosopher Ralph Waldo Emerson understood deeply and that few have the courage to walk today. Here is a truth that can hurt. The more you talk about your plans, the less likely you become that you make them. This is not just a casual observation. It is a well-documented psychological phenomenon. When we announce our intentions, our brain releases the same sense of satisfaction we would have when completing the task. Result: we lose urgency, hunger, that vital energy that drives us to real action. Emerson realized this over 150 years ago. He saw around him a society obsessed with appearances, with social performances, with the constant need to justify and explain itself. And he proposed something radical for the time, and even more radical to our day, that our presence, our essence, our results should speak for us, that there is a magnetic power in those who live their principles without having to announce them constantly. But let's be honest about what is really happening here. You believe you need to sell yourself. That needs to be constantly proving its value, explaining its qualities, justifying their decisions. That if you don't talk about what you're doing, no one will notice. That if not promoted, it will be invisible. And it is exactly this belief that is sabotaging you. Because while you are busy talking about yourself, the people who really matter are busy doing things that matter. And it is these people who naturally attract attention, respect, and opportunities, not because they are shouting "see me," but because they are creating real value in a consistent and silent way. Think about the people who most impress you professionally. How many of them spend the day talking about their projects on social networks? How many are constantly explaining how they are competent? Most of them, I bet, have a more reserved presence. They appear when they have something significant to share, when there are real results to show. And when they talk, people pay attention, because they know that if this person is talking, it must be important. We live in an era of constant noise. Everyone has an opinion about everything. Everyone specializes in something. Everyone has a course to sell or a personal brand to build. And in the midst of this deafening cacophony, who really stands out? The one who speaks louder, or the one who, when speaking, has substance to share? There is a fascinating phenomenon in social psychology called the symbolic substitution effect. When we talk about our goals, especially in social environments, we receive social recognition as if we had already achieved these goals. Our brain records this approval as a small victory, reducing our motivation to really pursue the goal. This is why people who announce that a diet will start, write a book, or open a business often never do any of it. If this content is making sense to you, click the subscribe button and subscribe to the channel. Thank you for your support. Emerson had a sentence that should be engraved on the minds of anyone who wants to have real impact. What you do says so loud that I can't hear what you say. This does not mean that we should be dumb or antisocial. It means that our actions should be so consistent, so aligned with our values, so impactful, that words become almost unnecessary. Imagine two people at a work meeting. The first arrives talking about all the projects that is playing, all the ideas you have, all the connections you made. The second arrives, greet politely and, when asked about a specific project, presents concrete results, real numbers, practical solutions. Who would you take more seriously? Who would you like to work with? The difference is not just what these people do, but how they understand their own value. The first person must constantly convince others and themselves that it has value. The second person knows it has value because it can demonstrate it. One is always in sales mode, the other is always in delivery mode. The philosopher understood that authenticity is not a performance. It's not something you do to impress others. It's something you are, regardless of who you are watching. And this authenticity, when genuine, exerts a natural magnetic force on people. They feel they are before someone real, someone righteous, someone they can trust. But how does this manifest in practice? Authentically powerful people need not announce their competence because it is evident in everything they do. They don't have to talk about their leadership qualities because others naturally follow them. They do not need to explain your vision because your actions make it clear to everyone. There is an elegance in those who operate this way. A motion economy, a precision in words, a presence that does not have to strive to be noted. It is like the difference between a virtuous musician who plays a simple melody with mastery and a beginner who tries to impress by playing something complicated in a mediocre way. The first communicates more with less. The second communicates less with more. Let's go back to this question. The constant need to explain and justify reveals a fundamental insecurity. When you genuinely trust your value, when you know that you are doing the right things for the right reasons, you do not need the constant validation of others. You do what you need to be done, and let the results speak for yourself. Emerson called it self-confidence, but not in the superficial sense we use today. He referred to a deep confidence in his own ability to discern what is right and act in agreement, regardless of popular opinion. It is the difference between seeming confident and being confident, between performing leadership and exercising leadership. Note the leaders who really transform organizations, communities, even countries. Most of them are not the best speakers or the most charismatic in the traditional sense, but they all have a common quality: absolute consistency between what they say and what they do. When they talk, we know they will act. When they act, we know it is aligned with what they believe. This consistency creates something powerful: reliable predictability. People know what to expect from you, not in the sense of being boring, but in the sense of being intact. If you say you are going to do something, you will do it. If you believe in something, you will act accordingly. If you commit to something, you will fulfill. This predictability, in an era of empty promises and words in the wind, is extremely valuable. But here is the interesting paradox. The less you try to impress people, the more you impress them. The less you strive to prove your value, the more valuable you become. The less you talk about your qualities, the more people realize them. It is as if there is a universal law that rewards substance over appearance, the essence of performance. This does not happen overnight. Building a consistent action-based reputation is a long and sometimes frustrating process, especially when you see people around you gaining immediate attention through self-promotion and aggressive marketing. But there is a fundamental difference between attention and respect, between visibility and credibility, between followers and people who really trust you. True transformation starts when you stop asking, how can I make people notice me? And it starts to ask, how can I consistently create real value? When you stop worrying about what others think about you and start focusing on becoming the best version of yourself. When you stop trying to prove that you are competent and simply start to be competent. Think about it as the difference between a well-kept garden and an advertising outdoor. The outdoor screams for attention, uses flashy colors, effects of effect, grandiose promises, and it gets attention, temporarily. But a well-kept garden, especially when you least expect it, makes you stop and admire. It's not trying to impress you, it's just beautiful. It's not making promises, you are delivering real beauty. If you realize that you talk too much about your plans and act less to make them, right here in the comments, action. Let's create a community of people who choose to impress for the results, not the words. The process of becoming someone of real impact through silent action has well-defined steps. First, you need to accept that your need for external approval is sabotaging you. This is difficult because this need seems natural, even necessary for professional success. But observe genuinely successful people and you will see that they may even value recognition, but do not depend on it to make decisions or maintain your self-esteem. Second, you need to develop what Emerson called self-reliance, the ability to rely on their own trial and act, even when it goes against popular opinion. This does not mean being stubborn or adamant. It means having clear principles and the courage to live according to them, even when it is easier to follow what everyone is doing. Third, you need to learn to find process satisfaction, not just recognition. When you genuinely love what you do, when you find meaning in your own action, you do not need the constant validation of others. You do it because it is important, not because it will bring you likes, comments, or compliments. Fourth, you need to develop strategic patience. Building a solid reputation based on real results takes time, much longer than building a self-promotion-based presence. But the results are incomparably more lasting and valuable. It is the difference between building with brick and cement or with cardboard and glue. During this process you will face moments of doubt. You will see less competent people gaining more attention, more opportunities, more recognition in the short term. And you will wonder if it is not being naive, if you should not play the game like everyone. At these times, remember that you are playing a different game, with different rules and much superior awards. Because there is a fundamental difference between hype-based success and substance-based success. The first is like fireworks, impressive, flashy, but temporary. The second is like a fire. It can start small, but it provides heat and constant light, and over time can become an impossible flame to turn out. People start to notice when you operate that way. Not immediately, not obviously, but gradually. They realize that when you talk about a project, the project really happens. That when you commit to something, it fulfills. That when you give your word, it is worth something. And in an era where this is increasingly rare, you become increasingly valuable. There is also an interesting psychological aspect of this. When you stop seeking external validation constantly, when you stop trying to prove your value to everyone around you, you develop a calmer, more centered presence. People feel it. They realize that you don't need their approval to feel good about yourself. And paradoxically, it makes them respect you more. It's like the difference between someone who is always asking, "Did you like what I did?" and someone who does things because he believes they are important and correct. The first conveys insecurity, the second conveys genuine confidence, and genuine confidence is magnetically attractive. But let's be practical about it. How do you implement this philosophy in everyday life? How do you stop selling yourself and start simply delivering value? First, before talking about any project or idea, ask yourself, I'm sharing it because it's relevant and useful for the conversation, or why do I want to impress people? If the answer is the second option, consider being silent. Second, when you are urged to announce a goal or plan, channel this energy to take the first step towards the goal. Instead of posting how you will start exercising, simply will exercise. Instead of talking about the project that will start, just start. Instead of explaining how it will improve something, simply improve. Third, when people ask what you are doing, be specific and factual, promotional. Instead of "I'm building a revolutionary company that will change the world," says "I'm developing a solution for X problem that affects Y people." Instead of "I have the best ideas on the market," show an implemented and working idea. The result of this approach is a credibility that cannot be questioned because it is based on evidence, not statements. It is a respect that cannot be shaken by criticism because it is based on real results. It is an influence that grows organically because people choose to follow you, not because you are trying to convince them. Emerson understood that there is a fundamental difference between trying to be impressive and simply being competent, between trying to look valuable and really create value, between performing leadership and exercising leadership through example. And this difference determines not only as others see you, but how you see yourself. When you live according to this philosophy, something interesting happens. You stop worrying so much about what people think about you and start worrying more about what you really are. Stop trying to control your image and begin to focus on your substance. Stop managing perceptions and begins to create realities. And people feel it. They realize when they are before someone genuine, someone who is not trying to sell them anything, someone who is simply being authentic and competent. And in a world full of people trying to impress, this authenticity is refreshing, attractive, memorable. Interestingly, this approach works not only professionally, but in all areas of life. Relationships based on who you really are deeper and more lasting than image-based relationships you project. Friendships with people who truly know you are more satisfactory than surface connections based on forced networking. There is silent but immense power to be known for your actions, not for your words. In having a reputation based on results, not promises. In being respected for what you do, not for what you say you do. It is a power that does not depend on the approval of others, which cannot be shaken by empty criticism, which grows over time instead of decreasing. Emerson realized that most people spend their lives trying to impress unknown and neglecting to impress the people who really matter, including themselves. When you become someone who can trust your own word, who meets commitments to yourself, who acts according to your values even when no one is looking, you develop a genuine and unshakable self-esteem. This is the difference between self-esteem based on external validation and self-esteem based on personal integrity. The first is fragile, dependent on the opinion of others, constantly threatened by criticism or rejections. The second is solid, independent, immune to external attacks, because it is based on facts, not opinions. In the end, becoming impossible to ignore has nothing to do with making noise or drawing attention. It has everything to do with becoming so competent, so consistent, so whole that its presence alone communicates value. It has to do with being someone whom people can trust, with whom they want to work, who want to learn. It is about understanding what real influence does not come from convincing people that you are valuable, but really to be valuable. What leadership does not come from talking about vision, but of acting with vision. What respect is not something you can demand or manipulate, but something you gain through consistent actions over time. When you operate this way, something magical happens. You stop needing to strive to be noticed, and people naturally begin to pay attention. Stop trying to prove that it is special, and people begin to realize that you are different. Stop seeking recognition, and recognition finds you. Because deep down, we are all looking for real people in a world of performance. People we can trust in a world of empty promises. People who do what they say in a world of words in the wind. And when we find these people, we value them, respect, and try to be close to them. This is the true power of Emersonian philosophy applied to the modern world. It is not about being antisocial or arrogant. It's about being so genuinely valuable that you don't have to convince anyone of that. It is about having so much substance that appearance becomes secondary. It is about being so consistent in your actions that your words become unnecessary. If you have gotten here, you understand that there is a different way, a path that goes against the culture of personal branding and constant self-promotion. A path that requires more discipline, more patience, more courage, but offers incomparably superior rewards. A path where you become impossible to ignore, not because you are shouting to be heard, but because you are creating real value consistently and silently. Subscribe to the channel. Save this video to review in the next 7 days and share it with someone who needs to discover the power to speak less and act more. Because in a world full of noise, those who choose action on words not only stand out, they lead.